Bunch of people asking for proof that God exists. I'm about to show it to you beyond a shadow of a doubt, so that you will never again be able to say there's no proof of God, except to deny logic, reason, and reality itself, and everything in it. First things first, which God? There's a whole bunch of gods, aren't there? No, there are not. Do not let biologists tell you about mythology. They don't know. About how there's an original pantheon of gods shared the world over by all the mythologies, and that people have been deifying themselves and adding them to the list for thousands of years. Such a simple story. Which God? The Most High. The highest one at the tippy top there. Creator of heaven and earth and all the other lowercase g gods. Do men worship stars? Yeah, they're called angels. Sons of God. In the kingdom of heaven there. But let me tell you why the Most High God, his name is Jesus, if you speak English. Yahshua, if you speak Aramaic. Isa, if you speak Arabic. If you speak etc. His name means specifically, I am salvation, or I am redeemer, or God saves. The word God there means I am saves, I am redeems. There's no confusion here as to world religion, mythology, or which God I am speaking about. And it is a false premise to begin with to say, well, I just believe in one less God than you do. Nah, I believe all those gods existed. I'm talking about the one at the top. Ah, but you might say, well, they deified the forces of nature. Wait till you find out scientifically what the forces of nature are in regards to celestial bodies and their effects upon the face of the earth, such as the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon upon the earth's waters and its crusts, in an intricate dance that shapes the face of the earth itself, the forces of nature. That's fundamental. People act like the forces of nature are some unknowable mystery. No. The celestial bodies in our solar system and outside of it are doing that upon the face of the earth. Did you consider that when we're worshiping stars and the sun and the moon and all that? That they are themselves the forces of nature? Anyway, let's get to this proof I'm so confident about. I've already won this debate. It's just too many people have no idea what I just said. Here is absolute proof of the creator of heaven and earth, the maker of man and his redeemer. Jesus said something real simple, and I do mean efficient. He said, except a seed falls into the ground and dies, it abides alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. What was he talking about? From elementary school science books. He was simply talking about the life cycle. Now, what most fail to understand about this parable is that the seed is not the plant. Notice how the life cycle of the plant begins with the seed, but realize also the seed had a life cycle all its own. And that the seed is fully mature here. Started with coitus, marital relations, and an embryo that grew all the way up until it was ready to be born. Here it exists as a fully mature seed. Here it goes into the ground and dies. Cannot be the seed anymore, is done being the seed. To be born again as the plant. And if you'll notice, the seed is no more. The whole point of the parable being, if the seed doesn't fall into the dirt and quit being a seed, die, it can never be born again as the plant. And it's much the same with the human life cycle, of course. Once more, we see that the human life cycle begins with a fertilized egg. Before that egg gets fertilized, it's not a human. Just like plants begin as seeds, humans live a whole life cycle and come to maturity, at which point they must fall into the ground and die so they can be born again. So to be clear, in order for a human to be born on the earth, they must first go through an entire life cycle as a single-celled organism. As a fully mature cell, enter into the egg and die, can never be that single-celled organism again, has to lose that body entirely, so that it can even be a human at all. If it doesn't go into the egg and die, it doesn't get to be born again as a human. If the fully mature seed that is at the end of its current life cycle does not fall into the ground and die, it does not get to be born again as a plant, able to produce many seeds itself. Human females carry the dirt, and it's called fertility. Men carry the seed and sow the seed in the dirt. And except a seed fall into the dirt and die, it abides alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit, either as the sower of the seed or as the fertile soil that gives birth to the humans. What does this have to do with religion? Well, it's simply just the life cycle. Funny thing about it. The life cycle is merely wave function. You're born, you grow up, you get old, and you die. Here we see clearly displayed wave function. Here we see it peak and go all the way down into death, but wave function does this. It doesn't just do this, it does this right here. So sure, this is one complete life cycle for that single-celled organism that ends in death, but it's wave function. Ye must be born again, Jesus said. In this case, as a human. The human life also displaying wave function. Here is the top of the wave. You can see that it declines into old age or entropy and ends in death, but it's a wave function. Does it just stop there, boys and girls? No, it does not. And that is why even though a plant which starts as a seed can be directly compared to a human life that starts as a seed, but Jesus was talking about afterlife. What happens after death? What happens to a human when they die? Well, observe what happens to an acorn when it falls into the ground and dies. Is there an afterlife in toroidal wave function? Yes, there most certainly is. Displayed by everything everywhere. Even the atoms display the wave function. There's the life cycles. Look, there it's a single-celled organism. It died. Now it's an embryo growing to full maturity in the belly. Now it can be born and be what it is. What happens when it dies? It becomes more powerful than you can ever imagine. Look at how much bigger and longer this life cycle is compared to how it started. And I can call that life cycle because it's merely just wave function, you see. This is life cycle right here. Jesus said, ye must be born again. He made it pretty clear. Almost everyone's going to have to die for that to happen. Some people won't in the end. 2 people ain't already. But they do have to give up this human form to get the form that comes next. According to who? According to the hydrogen wave function. That clearly displays life cycle for us. Jesus said, ye must be born again, and then used the example of a seed dying to be born again as a plant, implying directly that a human being buried is supposed to have the same effect. Not that a human is born again after death as flesh and blood, but on the next level. I have shown that life cycle is merely wave function, and observably so. What else in our reality confirms the words of Jesus Christ, ye must be born again? The moon, every 28 days, is born, grows to full maturity, declines, gets old, and dies, only to be born again. This is displaying wave function. A direct example of life cycle. The sun also displaying wave function or life cycle, as it peaks towards solar maximum and declines towards solar minimum. It also displays wave function in its rising and setting every day. If you're at the poles, sure, I lived in Alaska. Maybe the sun hangs out a lot longer during the day in the summer, and not at all in the winter. It still displays the binary wave function, stretched out in longer intervals. If day and night, sun and moon is not enough for you, observe the wave function or life cycle of the 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter. Ye must be born again, spring. Time is not cyclical, it's a spiral. That thing that was is that thing that shall be again. It doesn't stay the same size, it gets bigger. That's the point of the wave function. It's actually doing this right here. Not a circle, a spiral. Ye must be born again. Have I told you? Themselves display life cycle or toroidal wave to be born again as higher versions of their former selves. There's a fertilized seed in the dirt, born again from what it was into what it becomes, only to die. Only to be born again is what it was always meant to be at this stage. Unless it does it wrong, and then it perishes. Not every caterpillar builds a cocoon. Not every acorn falls into the dirt and dies. Not every human makes it to heaven. Born again is something bigger than they were. Wait, what's that? What's that little baby star getting ready to be born? How did he get up there? Wait, do humans turn into stars when they die? If they follow the commands of their God who made them? Did God make humans on the earth so that they can be born again from heaven? As something very obviously immortal? I didn't prove that here, but it's worth thinking about. What I did prove is all logic, reason, and reality agrees with one specifically. His name is Jesus Christ. He said a whole bunch more, and it's all confirmed by the fact that the universe is a toroid. Everything in it is a toroid. Everything displays that wave function. Everything confirms the truth of his gospel. So there ain't one single excuse to be found anywhere.